Well, good evening, everybody.
Hey, Al.
Hello.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Hello.
We got some heavy weights at the table.
I beg your pardon.
And
I'm on a new diet.
I was
How
going
dare
to
you?
start with Jasmine.
Girl, your hair alone.
Jasmine Pryce Lords, heavyweight, and we're talking about personality, of course, and John from South Florida Gay News, and Dale Stine from some back alley somewhere in South Beach.
That's the old days.
That was the old days. And Dr. Tai Houser from Broward College.
Who's he?
Have you heard any news about getting out and teaching internationally?
No news yet.
No news yet. Yeah. Well, things are improving.
5, 4.
Lots of news tonight. So, it'll be interesting. And then we're doing the task force, of course.
A busy weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be very busy. Hopefully fun.
And the convention center, oh, by the way, is much more expensive than much more.
Yeah. Well, good evening, everybody.
Hey, Al.
Hello.
Hey, girl. Hey.
Hello.
We got some heavy weights at the table.
I beg your pardon.
And
I'm on a new diet.
I was
How
going
dare
to
you?
start with Jasmine.
Girl, your hair alone.
Jasmine Pryce Lords, heavyweight, and we're talking about personality, of course, and John from South Florida Gay News, and Dale Stine from some back alley somewhere in South Beach.
That's the old days.
That was the old days. And Dr. Tai Houser from
Who's he?
Broward College.
Who's he?
Have you heard any news about getting out and teaching internationally?
No news yet.
No news yet. Yeah. Well, things are improving.
5, 4.
Lots of news tonight. Well, welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Thursday, October 21st, 2021, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out Television Network and Hotspots Magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ plus experience. We bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. Let's first up welcome anchor John Hayden, a reporter for South Florida Gay News, covering politics, arts, philanthropic organizations. John has been a journalist for 26 years, much of it covering the stupidity and scandals of Hollywood. He's interviewed nearly every big name in TV, movies, music, and considers the time he spent with Cher as his best 4 minutes of his entire life. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Al. You know what? Until I spent 4 minutes with this group, and now my life has changed yet once again.
We'll talk more about that.
Let's also welcome anchor Jasmine Pryce Lords. This drag queen is known as the plus-sized Barbie and the bearded beauty. She is the Florida mother of the iconic House of Lords. She is also the new Miss Royal Extravaganza. You can catch her at many popular venues in South Florida, including as the newest host on Georgie's Alibi Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Good evening, and you have breaking news for us?
Good evening, yeah, so this just in, I'm also the new entertainment director for Hamburger Mary's here in Bolton Manors.
Hey, congratulations.
Oh. Thank you, I'm very honored and excited.
You know, I have to get a plug-in for Hamburger Mary's. It's an iconic name in America, and we needed somebody great as the entertainment director. So
That's fine to pick Jasmine, though.
Yeah.
You know what, I'll do what I can, I'm sorry.
Did you hear the shade over here?
It's like his time is coming.
Yeah.
Like right now. Right now.
Yeah.
So let's welcome anchor Dr. Tai Houser.
Whoa,
He's an
hold on.
associate professor of English and Humanities at Broward College. Additionally, he teaches for extended periods of time at international colleges in China, India, Spain, and Bolivia. Good evening, Tai.
You were way nicer than me.
Hi, y'all.
But you're expecting it.
Me. I look forward to seeing you at Alibi, actually, Jasmine.
Come on.
Let's welcome anchor Dale Stine, a master's graduate from Juilliard School. He is a well-known photographer, famous for his photographs of internationally acclaimed celebrities and me. He is presently the director of music ministry at Unity on the Bay and moderator of South Florida's largest LGBTQ+ Facebook group, Miami Gay List. He served
served on the Miami Beach LGBTQ Advisory Committee and now sits on the city's Human Rights Committee. Good evening, Dale. I was ventriloquist.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Get your hand out of me, pal.
Oh dear. Visual. I need to erase. Backtrack. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ+ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast, and here are the bullet points of the queer news for today, Thursday, October 21st.
Well, we begin by queering up, of course, trans rights. Netflix employees make history with a walkout over companies' handling of anti-LGBTQ. Queer News Tonight has extensively reported on the release of Dave Chappelle's comedy special on Netflix. Yesterday, the head of the queer editorial at Netflix reported to work in person for the very first time, just in time to walk out. Gabrielle Korn, who heads up Netflix LGBTQ+ hub, Most, is among a string of employees who vowed to walk out of the company Wednesday morning after Netflix stood by its decision to platform the anti-transgender comedy special, The Closer, by Dave Chappelle, for 2 weeks. The company has since started to backtrack support for the special. Korn is among those who Monday tweeted plans to leave the office amid growing discontent over the company's defense of Chappelle and retaliation against transgender employees who have raised concerns.
More than 100 members of the media lined Vine Street, home to a Netflix office where workers walked off the job promptly at 10:30 in the morning. They were led by trans activist Ashley Marie Preston, who does not work at the company, but has conducted training at Netflix. Preston said at the rally, "It isn't just about Netflix, it's about a corporate culture that manipulates the algorithmic sciences to distort the way that we perceive ourselves and one another. It is the emergence of a hate economy, of corporations profiting and making money off of us, getting at each other's throats." Preston said that she and others had asked Chappelle to engage in a conversation about this special, but that he had declined.
She said Wednesday's demonstration did not seek to quote-unquote cancel the comedian, but invite accountability for the real-world harm he caused against a backdrop of what is expected to be the deadliest year on record for Black transgendered women. Hundreds of LGBTQ+ protesters and allies flooded the plaza in front of the building, chanting, quote, "Trans Lives Matter." As security circled the perimeter and police helicopters circled overhead.
The crowd was met with forceful counter-demonstrators demanding that the Chappelle special be allowed to remain on Netflix. Noticeably absent from the action were Netflix employees themselves, who did walk out but stood silently in literal shadows, declining to speak to media, even off the record. Amid preparations for the walkout, a Twitter account backing trans employees within the company released on Monday a bulleted list of demands for Netflix leadership that included an increase in investment in transgender content on the platform to greater control over editorial decisions for LGBTQ+ employees.
The demands come in the wake of a protracted battle between Netflix, its own employees, and the wider trans community over the release of Chappelle's latest special, during which he misgenders a former friend who died by a suicide after defending him. Complaints that transgender people accuse him of punching down and suggest that only white people are queer. Netflix yesterday issued a press release that they actually support the walkout. They stated, quote, "We value our trans colleagues and allies and understand the deep hurt that's been caused. We respect the decision of any employee who chooses to walk out and recognize we have much more work to do, both with Netflix and our content," end of quote. Many celebrities joined in support of the walkout. Queer News Tonight will continue to follow this story.
This is big news. It's big news because it's Netflix. Netflix is our modern day logo television for the LGBTQ community. So we're talking about a platform that embraces LGBT dramatically and has stumbled very, very badly here. Don't you think?
Yeah, definitely agree. Especially when so many people have spoken up and they've decided to double down and still keep it and support their decision. I think it's definitely a huge stumble.
But it's good that it's them because it's forcing the conversation. Right? They're saying, whoops, we really did screw up, and everyone else is saying, yeah, hey, we're glad you screwed up because now we get to highlight this conversation and the breadth of areas that it covers.
And because they do have so much LGBTQ plus content, the conversation, it's okay for the conversation to happen. And the optics of the whole story, you know, the retracting statements, supporting, not supporting, has been so public that it's made the conversation, it's like a real conversation between people happening, you know. This is a dialogue, a debate.
And each one of these types of stories, Dave Chappelle's obviously the loudest, but each of these trans stories we can now highlight on this program and in conversations and in other shows, because trans issues were ignored for years by not only mainstream, but also much of the gay community. So now we do get to stand up, and they are being talked about. And while this special will probably stay on Netflix, I don't see it probably getting pulled, it's opened a much wider conversation, to your point. So I think it's, in the long run, it could be a good thing, but my God, it's terrible to listen to and live through now.
Yeah.
Do you think Chappelle loves all of this? I mean, that's a supposition.
Of
Of course he does.
Of course.
It's publicity. Any publicity is good publicity.
And interestingly, I think the final thought, at least on this portion of the story, we've reported on this extensively. The final portion is, let's stop talking about Dave Chappelle. He's funny. He's probably a genius. People don't like the humor that he put in front of the trans community and the LGBTQ community, but let's stop talking about Dave Chappelle. Now we have the opportunity to refocus the conversation at Netflix and other corporate platforms that did what they did, the trans conversation and the employees and the support that caused this walkout, and focus on that. One thing that I have to give Netflix kudos from my seat. It is very hard for any corporate organization in America that trades and has shareholders, which Netflix does. They're in a situation where they don't like this kind of publicity. I don't care what anybody says. Corporations are controlled by their shareholders. Their share price is king. Netflix did not have to, the chairman, say, I made a mistake. We're continuing with this process, but I made a mistake. And they also did not have to issue a press release that we actually support our employees walking out in demonstration in support for trans and LGBT against the corporate platform of Netflix. That is a significant moment. We should at least give them the kudos for that effort and use that as the platform of the communication that goes forward, and not Dave Chappelle.
You hear?
Let's queer up gay culture. Lady Gaga's speech explains why pronoun use is important. We are in this together. Watch this.
In the spirit of acceptance, the spirit of tolerance, the spirit of courage to be seen as you see yourself. I have learned so much over the years from all my fans. I feel so blessed. Thank you for showing me and teaching me. And I've learned something very important to ask people now, and I wish to share this with everyone who's listening, not just in this theater, but around the world. Ask the question, what is your pronoun? Because for a lot of people, it's really hard, and their pronoun's not respected, or they're not asked. And for me, I've grown and changed over the years in a lot of different ways. I've felt misunderstood in different ways. All our hardships are different. I don't mean to compare. I just mean to say we're in this together, and I've had a million reasons to want to give up. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you just need one good reason to stick around.
All right, you go, Lady Gaga, but don't forget to play poker face as well. That's what we came for. Anyway, Lady Gaga, the longtime supporter of LGBTQ plus rights, made the comments in her fired up and articulate speech at a concert that you just saw there back in 2019. It's an amazing, important message that has stood the test of time and maybe even more important now than when it was said back then. And it's certainly well worth remembering. Yesterday, for National Pronoun Day, she referenced the comments again. She said, quote, "I have learned so much over the years from all my fans. I feel so blessed. Thank you for showing me and teaching me," end quote. Lady Gaga has also paid tribute to the legacy of the Stonewall riots and trans activist Marsha P. Johnson.
Wow.
Well, there's a reason why the gay mating call is Gaga, 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 Gaga.
I must have missed that memo. I wasn't there in gay school that day.
There was a meeting. There was a meeting.
I missed that meeting.
It's on your secret gay card. All you have to do is turn it over. It's right on the back.
It's also on the agenda.
Yeah.
Got it.
Look, talk about being a trendsetter. I mean, when she was talking about this in 2019, and as it says, as you said, stated, how well it stands the test of time and will continue to do so. It's just it's more important now than it was then.
Mm-hmm. And hearing it and saying it makes you start to ingrain it in you. You know, the more you ask someone, what are your pronouns? The more that you hear people saying it, and it just becomes part of the culture, then it just will become natural. So if you say it, and you will eventually believe it.
You know, one of the things I really like about this story, I thought of this in 19, gender and language for me has been, frankly, an evolving situation from my seat. I have not been particularly interested or care perhaps as much as I should about pronouns. I'm not concerned about how somebody refers to me in pronoun. I have learned that makes not one darn bit of difference about what somebody else thinks about their pronouns. I know.
Can you imagine Al is allowing other people to have agency?
I know. Exactly right. And even despite your evil reads, I really like this because it helps remind us that it's not what we think is important; it is what you think is important.
Use an important pronoun.
And to be as good and kind as we possibly can, which is to respect a person's pronouns. It's important to them, and so therefore that is what is important, and that's what she reminds us of yesterday on National Pronoun Day.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, especially for me, you know, being a drag queen and working with the girls behind the scene, you know, that T word that we all casually throw around, and it was never an offensive term, and now it has become a different, like, you can't say that word anymore. And it's definitely an evolving thing. I think every day we're learning, and the only way we can do that is by surrounding ourselves with diversity and having those conversations and learning. I recently booked a show, and all of my cast that night were people from out of town, out of state. I had never worked with them, and I was the last one who happened to walk in the room, and the first I said, "Hey, what are your pronouns?" And literally everybody like gasped. But because I don't think we have that understanding yet, where I've learned from down here and the people that I've met that I'm not going to assume anymore, and what I'm introducing, hey, before I say something wrong, especially on a microphone, the last thing I want to do, welcome you to my bar, and then get on a mic and say the wrong thing, you know. But I think we learned that by surrounding ourselves with people who are different, and it forces you to evolve and learn.
Yeah. Look at your face and look at my face. There could be nothing more different.
We're not twins.
Right. But all it requires is respect.
Right.
That's what I just heard you say.
Amen. All right. So now let's queer up gay culture. Girls Go Wild as new trailer for Tampa Baes arrives. The trailer for Tampa Baes is finally here and looks to be every bit as dramatic, heartwarming, and queer as we could have hoped. The 8-episode docuseries, which is set to premiere on Prime Video on Friday, November 5th, follows the lives, loves, and drama of a group of young lesbians living in the gay hotspot of Tampa, Florida. Executive producer and showrunner Melissa Bidwell and her co-executive producer, Paul O'Malley, both of whom identify as members of the LGBTQ plus community and are always on the lookout for unique groups of people willing to share their stories. As soon as they met the Baes cast, they knew they had a great show on their hands. Bidwell said, quote, "When we heard about this group of friends in Tampa Bay, a true hidden gem for the LGBTQ plus community, we were blown away by how interesting each of the Baes are. What makes the show work is that the cast all already knew one another organically. The show was not individually cast. Everyone we follow is part of a pre-existing friend group or part of a larger social circle. I was blown away with how candid the women were about what it means to be a lesbian in 2021 and what it's like being a biracial, Hispanic, or Middle Eastern lesbian, and etc. We love that each woman expresses themselves in a different way and does what feels genuine to them. Watch this."
It's 2021. It's Tampa. There's so many beautiful people. The odds are my favorite. Are you guys into girls or are you guys?
I'm straight.
So, like, not even a little curious?
Not that I know of.
The lesbian scene in Tampa is definitely close-knit.
Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's dated everybody.
We're best friends together 24/7. Everybody has different backgrounds.
It's definitely an honor to be able to talk about our heritage. Cheers.
My mom says you have to finish everything on your plate.
Everybody has different personalities.
Just a flirtatious person.
We're just friends. Some people just don't get along.
There's obviously
Tension. There's like an unspoken battle.
A culture of who's the cutest couple.
If you are the it couple, you just are.
I know we're not looking for any drama.
You will never be married because you can't keep a girl for 5 seconds.
You're a snake, and I don't trust anything you say.
Haley's dead to me.
It's not always going to be easy.
When I came out, my parents weren't okay with it.
I can't imagine my life without you. Are they going to accept me? Are they going to still love me?
Your blood family isn't always your family. Sometimes you can have a chosen family.
Y'all bitches ready?
Let's go crazy.
You come at them, I have a problem.
Our friendship is everything to me.
I love you guys.
I signed us up to do a nude painting.
You want me to have my titties out on you? I'm not that type of lesbian.
It's like the L word meets
2021.
Siesta Key.
Baywatch
Right.
meets
Right.
Real Housewives.
If they're looking for another show, I know a group of drag queens from Miami. We'll give you a real good show, I promise.
Yeah.
Call me.
How real of reality is this if they're billing it as Tampa as a gay hotspot? Really?
Oh.
Really? I mean, I'll drive over there for a steak from Burns and then drive right back.
Maybe for the lesbian community?
Well,
I don't know much about the lesbian
Gulfport has
community.
a very large girls community.
That might be why,
and,
yeah.
Tampa Pride and St. Pete Pride, the largest pride in the South, would probably argue with you slightly.
My first pride was St. Pete Pride, and I was 16 in full drag.
Yeah.
And
look at me now.
No.
All I was going to say is
Right.
there's a few facts that we talk about at Happening on Television Network a lot. We have with the exception of Jasmine, we have a very masculine face here tonight.
Sir.
We have right.
the heaviest
I
beard
didn't
here.
want to assume, right? So out of respect, I was
Thank you.
putting that in front.
They look fabulous.
Absolutely. We talk about this all the time. What is happening to the girls' community in LGBTQ?
Mm-hmm.
Bars are disappearing. You don't see the girls out the way we see gay men out. And we have to work harder than ever to ensure that we are representing the L in every way we possibly can at Hotspots Magazine and Happening on Television Network. It is a commitment. But it is really interesting that it is very difficult to do. Because one of the things that we're learning as we explore that is, do the girls want to be out with the boys? And where are the girls and how are they supporting? And this is an example of it. I think that this is a great idea, no matter how they pursue it. I think it's a great idea. in exploring girl culture in LGBT. And I would point out, it is significant. We just forget it. This month alone, the Dinah took place in Palm Springs, and over the weekend, Girls in Wonderland took place in Orlando. And while you may not be aware of it, we had many friends here in South Florida that participated. Estimated 20,000 girls participated in Orlando this weekend at Girls in Wonderland.
I shared a fair amount of it on the Miami Gay List Instagram page, which I'm doing much more inclusive than the Facebook page, which is very gay boy centric. But the footage has been hot and bothered. I mean, it's been fabulous.
Yeah.
The footage has been very similar to what we just watched from the Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and I think generally with the difficulties that we're seeing in lesbian culture, what is the modern today lesbian culture? We all have an obligation to try to help propel the conversation on the lesbian community as much as we can. And it leads me to a little drop-in. Starting in November, we're very excited to announce that one of the leading lesbians in Florida, Faye What?
The Mouth of the South,
is joining the Happening Out television network, and her show, which focuses on lesbian culture, is going to come front and center. Finally.
Is that why I was on the show?
Yeah, that's right. You're the second leading lesbian in South Florida. So make sure you tune in. We're going to try at Happening Out and Hotspots to do a good job and better representation of the girl community.
Excellent. Well, now, speaking of Faye, we'll queer up entertainment. MTV Awards stays in Hungary to support LGBTQ+ community. MTV has decided to forge ahead with the annual European Music Awards in Hungary in solidarity with the LGBTQ+ community, despite the country passing laws in June that ban content deemed to promote homosexuality and gender change on primetime television. If enforced, the legislation could force the likes of Harry Potter and series like Modern Family and Friends into late-night TV slots. Friends should be banned all the way around anyway.
How dare you?
The move has been roundly condemned by leading global companies, including MTV's parent company, Viacom-CBS. President and CEO, MTV Entertainment Group Worldwide, Chris McCarthy, said in a heartfelt memo sent internally to staff saying, quote, "I have to be honest with you. As a gay man, my personal emotions got the better of me. After learning this legislation passed, my knee-jerk reaction was that we should move the event to another country. However, after my emotions cooled down, I picked up the phone to connect with global LGBTQ+ advocates like All Out, got feedback from LGBTQ+ advocates in Hungary, spoke with Raphael, Bruce, and other team members from around the world, and consulted our LGBTQ+ employee resource group, Emerge. The decision was very clear to all of us. We should not move the event. Instead, we should move forward, using the show as an opportunity to stand in solidarity with the LGBTQ+ community in Hungary and around the world as we continue to fight for equality for all," end quote. Consequently, the 2021 MTV EMAs will return live from the Budapest Sport Arena in Hungary on November 14th.
Brave, bold move. I applaud it highly.
I think we do more good when we stay in there and hold. That's why I wasn't really thrilled when they moved baseball's All-Star game away from Atlanta this year, because they were trying to do all those the voting restrictions and stuff like that, and they moved it out to somewhere else, to Colorado. I just think it helps to stay and represent your community. Elton John played Moscow after their law went into effect in 2013. Elton John also played one of Rush Limbaugh's weddings and donated $1 million to the fee that he got to the Marriage Equality Act. So you can get your point across sometimes by showing up.
Yeah, I think this is just the right thing to do. The governments should put the sanction pressure on the countries that are doing these things, and the artists and the gays, we should be there and show up and make our voices heard.
They have an issue with Harry Potter. I have an issue with them. That's all I can say. I'm like, what did Harry Potter do to you?
Yeah.
Like,
that's right.
What hasn't?
And what did you say about canceling Friends? What was that?
Right?
Who said that?
I've never liked that.
Yeah. Production, please put Ty on mute. One of the things that's interesting, I applaud the decision. First, you hear from the president of MTV Worldwide, which I didn't know was gay until this story, It's interesting to me because they get the ultimate revenge. They're a live show that is going to uber promote LGBT in Hungary just to poke in the eye of the president and that Hungarian parliament. And it will prove to the president of Hungary, while they broadcast from Budapest, that the president of Hungary is actually a Budapest.
I see what you did there.
Oh, wow. Someone's
okay, and with that mic drop, let's queer up the world. Hong Kong gets first gay dating television show. Boyscation is the creation of out gay actor, host, and business executive Benji Wong, who also serves as the host and producer of the new show. The series is scheduled to drop and debut on TVB's J2 channel early in November.
My goodness.
Wong says, quote, "This is the most important chapter of my TV career, and this is the most extraordinary attempt in Hong Kong TV history," end quote. According to a report in the Straits Times, production is already underway for the program, which will feature 10 single gay contestants vying to find love through dating. Wong revealed he personally selected the contestants, who come from a diversity of backgrounds and occupations. Here are a few of the hunks who are already set to appear on Boyscation.
I love that Wong personally selected them because I would definitely like to personally select with my own Wong.
Everyone is going
a casting couch.
Futon. Everyone is going to be sleeping with each other on this set. All the contestants will be sleeping with each other. The producers will be sleeping with contestants. The grips will be sleeping with contestants. It's going to be an orgy, and I want to work on that set so badly.
Get a grip.
I want to go on Boyscation. I want to go on Boyscation. Like, where do we go? Where do I sign up?
Yeah.
Do you have a connection?
You're not.
That's true. That's fine.
So the real thing here, though, and no matter how much, no matter how light we want to treat this, is how long until mainland China steps in and tries to squash that?
Exactly what I thought.
Because they have been more and more moving to exert their control over these territories that are part of their.
Thank you for that, Debbie Downer. And while I completely agree with you. I'm just going to live in the moment of looking at those pictures. It's just a darn shame that you didn't get to look at them as closely as Tai and I did as you were doing the story, because I was thinking to myself, finally, gay, rich, crazy agent.
And with that drool on the table, those are our queer news headlines for today. Let's next catch up on the LGBTQ plus news surrounding COVID-19 with our special segment called Quarantine Quickies.
Queer News Tonight has reported on coronavirus on every newscast since January 6th, 2020. Tonight, we report that as of today, more than 3,227,000 LGBTQ plus Americans have contracted COVID-19.
Queer News Tonight remembers the more than 52,000 LGBTQ plus Americans that have died from coronavirus.
But the news is improving because as of today, more than 410 million vaccination doses have been administered in the U.S.
That is our pandemic news for tonight. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine and supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ plus religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Now watch this.
My name is Greg Shapiro, and I'm an entertainment journalist, fiction writer, and poet, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Well, we're going to finish tonight's queer news headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus Flash News.
LGBTQ plus Flash News. Queer News Tonight celebrates Spirit Day. Spirit Day is an annual LGBTQ awareness day observed on the third Thursday in October. Started in 2010 by Canadian teenager Brittany McMillan. It was initially created in response to a rash of widely publicized bullying-related suicides of gay school students in 2010, including that year of Tyler Clementi. Promoted by GLAAD, observers wear the color purple as a visible sign of support for LGBTQ youth and against bullying. Here at Queer News Tonight, we will always report on the fight against bullying and are here to support those who have been bullied. Watch this.
And on Spirit Day, we recognize that LGBTQI+ youth disproportionately face bullying and harassment. A majority of LGBTQI+ youth in middle or high school were bullied last year. Even more, 70% heard homophobic remarks from teachers or school staff, and 75% have experienced discrimination based on their sexual orientation or gender identity in their lifetime. This bullying and harassment can have life-threatening consequences, as we all know. More than half of transgender and non-binary youth have seriously considered suicide in the past. This reinforces the need for the Senate to pass the Equality Act, which will provide long overdue federal civil rights protections to LGBTQI+ Americans and their families. You know, a younger staffer recently told me that in high school he noticed how many people wore purple on Spirit Day and how much that meant to him as a young closeted teen. I could only hope that young people who might be watching or sees clips of this briefing will know that they are supported and represented in the highest levels of government today. So today I join people around the world in wearing purple to show solidarity with victims of domestic violence and with lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex youth. Our administration stands with you, we support you, and we love you.
I think that is simply amazing and beautiful. As somebody who definitely went through bullying in both middle school, high school, and having thoughts of suicide, this is so important. And I'm just so proud that we've come to a place where our own government is recognizing and uplifting that. It's important.
And your purple today is just wonderful.
Why, thank you.
It's gorgeous. No, wear purple, but more importantly, sue the schools. If they don't live up to their responsibility to protect students from bullying, and this is always my solution, but we got to remember, sue the schools. Lawsuits and lawyers get attention.
That's for sure. What came to mind while I was watching this wonderful clip? This was also a prescient creation in 2010 because just like the Lady Gaga in 2019, this seems even more important today than it was then.
Three of these things belong together. Three of these things are kind of the same. Can you guess which two things don't belong here? Come on, can you play my game?
Again, could we please mute Ty's? Of course, you know that was the White House press room today. Karine Jean-Pierre. By the way, in case you did not know, she is LGBTQ+, member of our community. She was wearing purple in tribute of Spirit Day, not only talking about it, but I want to just plug the success of Queer News Tonight, because there is no place in America today that is going to celebrate the greatness of Spirit Day in such a fabulous purple way, with purple hair, purple eyeshadow, purple scarf, purple top. Jasmine Pryce Lords is the epitome of Spirit Day. Congratulations. We love that.
Absolutely. LGBTQ+ flash news. Halloween is here, and we've got 25 sexy monsters, number 15 to number 11. Welcome to part 3 of Queer News Tonight's countdown to the top 25 sexiest monsters in media. This evening, we count down from 15 to 11. Are you ready for this? Here we go. Number 15. Pyramid Head. This Silent Hill baddie has a giant sword and a strange metal pyramid for a head. But all we see are those muscular muscles. Lots and lots of muscle. Number 14. Amphibian Man.
Lord.
The Shape of Water showed us that even with scales, plenty of people are turned on by a swimmer's build. As a side note, during production of the segment, it was discovered that most of production has quite an adult toy collection based on this character. Number 13, Shiva. Our second entry from the Mortal Kombat series. Shiva has a great body, a fun punk attitude, and 4 arms for your pleasure. Number 12, Detlof van der Erten, if I said it right. This elder vampire from The Witcher 3 melts your heart with his story of a kidnapped love who he is trying to rescue. Who isn't turned on by indiscriminate slaughter in the name of love? I'd kill anyone. Number 11, Manju Boo. From beefcake to buffness, this Dragon Ball Z character is everyone's type. First introduced as a pink and chubby fighter, as he trains, he ranges in body builds from Twink, one of my favorites, to Jock, one of my second favorites. We also don't know what's up with the tentacles on his head, but I'm sure Al has figured out what to do with them. Make sure to stay tuned next week as we count down the final 10 hotties in our top 25 sexiest monsters in media. One hint, number 1, Al Ferguson.
Wow. I'm sorry, production's on the... Wait, the chairman of the English department at Broward College is on line 1? Okay, he'll be right with you.
It's a she and I'm tenured.
Wow. And then also it's Majin Buu, but I mean, you know, Majin Buu, I don't know what you said, but it was very like good. It was like, right, Boo? I was like, what? This went a different place.
Did you just correct the doctor of English?
That wasn't an English word.
Check, please.
I'm with Amphibian Man all the way. 1, he definitely likes it wet. 2nd, the shape of water guy went to my high school. He was 10 years ahead of me, went to my high school, went to my college. So Doug Jones. And he was also played Mac Tonight in the 1980s McDonald's commercial. So I'm all for him.
Wow.
I remember that commercial.
I was engaged at Ty's exceptional foreplay with those names. It was really quite riveting. Yeah.
Well, that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
Then help us by liking and subscribing. Ring the bell for updates. Share this news with your friends and family.
Post this broadcast in the many groups of which you're a member. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your friends and family.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Jasmine Pryce Lords, John Hayden, Dale Stine, and Dr. Tai somebody. Houser. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end our show tonight, we do have one final story.
Yes, we queer up trans rights. The White House's Tori Cooper talks trans history, violence, and why LGBTQ don't support the T. Recently, Queer News Tonight sat down with Tori Cooper. She is the Director of Community Engagement for the Transgender Justice Initiative at the HRC and is the first Black trans person on the Presidential Advisory Council on HIV/AIDS. Here are her thoughts on how the LGBTQ communities can help better support the transgender siblings. Watch this.
Well, next up on Queer News Tonight, we have a very special interview. I'm pleased to welcome Tori Cooper. Tori is a health and equity advocate, community organizer, educator, published author, and leader in the transgender and HIV communities. She leads with more than 30 years of experience at all levels of HIV service, from volunteer roles to her service as executive director and founder of Advocates for a Better Care Atlanta, LLC. She now serves as the Human Rights Campaign's Director of Community Engagement for Transgender Justice Initiative. In this role, her focus includes economic empowerment, capacity building programs, public safety, and expanded public health education campaigns. She is also the first transgendered Black woman to ever sit on the White House's Presidential Advisory Council on HIV/AIDS. We are very happy to welcome Tori Cooper to Queer News Tonight. Good evening, Tori.
Good evening, Al. What an honor to be here.
I am very excited. We have been trying to talk to you since the historic announcement of you being added to the White House HIV Commission. First off, congratulations representing our LGBTQ community to that appointment. You must have been very excited on the news.
I am still excited, and thank you very much for that. I understand that it is extremely humbling, and it is also a lot of work to make sure that I am bringing along folks from my community, because I don't just sit there as myself. I sit there serving a whole bunch of other folks, and my job is to be a voice for folks who won't be invited to sit there.
So interesting to me, because we've talked about at Queer News Tonight in so many different stories how representation for our community matters so much, to not only represent in our own LGBTQ plus community, whichever letter of the acronym we represent, but to the broader community itself. Well, let's dive right into your expertise. And let's begin by talking about HIV. The disparities among Black trans women in the trans community in general, and the L and the G and the B in our community. How do they contrast in those different groups about what's going on in HIV and prevention and transmission? Tell us a little bit, and give us a 101 in education of what we should know.
So what we should know is that every single problem, every societal issue that every community of folks has, it also exists in Black trans communities. The problem is that we have to go through a lot of systems that weren't created for us. And even considering how on the political side, there's so much anti-trans legislation. I think there are 250 bills currently being promoted that are actually anti-trans. We have to navigate healthcare systems that never considered us. They don't consider our gender. They don't consider our healthcare needs. They don't even consider our race in many, many instances. And so there's a lot of navigation, a lot of hoops, a lot of societal racism and different barriers that we all have to climb through and climb over.
Help us in the very specific issues that we're watching in America. Not only, I want to talk specifically about Black trans women and violence in a couple of moments, but help us help us understand broadly. We also continue to report at Queer News Tonight really very difficult legislations that we're seeing on the state level in many, especially southern states, in approaching anti-LGBT, but very specifically aimed at transgender people. What, from your seat, I know you're a health expert, but there's politics behind health policy, and from the politics of all of this, what do you think is behind what we have been watching in the last 9 months, and why do you think it's happening in America?
There are a number of different things that are happening. One of the things that's happening is that the opposition, we'll refer to all of them as the opposition. The opposition is really picking on a group of folks for whom society holds in low self-esteem already, low esteem already. And that's the trans community, and more specifically, the Black trans community. We, under the LGBTQIA plus spectrum, have not prioritized, have not included trans people in anything, really, from the history, throughout the history of Pride, even though history says that Pride, that Stonewall riots were started by Sylvia Rivera and Marsha P. Johnson, two trans women using today's terminology, and Marsha being Black. And so they're simply picking up a cue from the larger community. Well, we can go after these folks for whom society is left behind, and we can pick on them because nobody's going to protect them. Nobody's going to put their lives on the line. Nobody's going to save them. And they also know that trans people have so little power in society and so little privilege. And so they're picking on the lowest denominator, the low-hanging fruit, if you will. And unfortunately, it's working in some places.
As they do this, and I hear the observation that you've just made, but are they doing this for some gain, or is it, I hear so many different arguments. It's to win elections, it's to win the midterms, it's to create a culture war, it's to marginalize the entire LGBTQ community because they can't get the gay guys, they can't get the gay white boys. What's the motivation behind this to pursue this?
So I think the last couple of things that you mentioned are really part of their goal. They can't get to the white gay guys, and so they're going to go after folks again who have less privilege and power in society. But then I think also the bigger issue is about control, and it is control over every aspect of people's lives. They lost on marriage equality. That's something, they're now saying, we now know the law of the land is that two people can get married who are of consenting age, they want to get married, regardless as to their gender identity, regardless as to their sexuality. So that's a wonderful thing. But what they're saying is, we want to control the lives of people. And if we can go after trans people, if we can dictate who uses a bathroom, then that gives us a little entryway so that we can chip it away at the rights of other folks. And so I think a bigger thing here is all about control and how they want to control every aspect of people's lives.
Tori, I'm curious as I hear you say that. It washes over me so emotionally with what you've watched. You come from a position of privilege in our LGBTQ community and in the trans community, and your representation and your long history of advocacy of our community. With the achievements that we have seen in 2021, the election of the most pro administration that we've ever seen for our community in history. Your appointment to this commission, the recognition that the White House has reached out in so many broad and unique ways for our community, even to the appointment of the first assistant cabinet member that is trans. With all of these mammoth successes, including you in 21, how do you feel about the counterbalance of the disappointment that your community and our broad LGBTQ community, but mostly focused on trans, is under greater attack than we have likely seen since this millennium began? How do you feel about that? How do you personally process those obvious contradictions?
So with greater visibility comes a greater responsibility. There's a greater responsibility for we as trans people as we gain more visibility, as trans is not new to folks anymore. We have a greater responsibility to continue to provide education and making sure that folks understand better who we are, that we reduce some of the stigma and some of the miseducation that exists around our community. But then, using that same thing, with greater visibility comes greater responsibility for everybody that's not trans. Now you can no longer say, well, I don't know if they exist. I don't know anybody. You can't use that anymore. And so the responsibility lies now on cis folks, on everybody who's not trans, to ensure that we're treated equitably in all spaces, that we pass the Equality Act, for instance, that guarantees protection in all public accommodations, and that policy, anti-trans policy, it doesn't become the law of the land. And also understanding that we all have a place in this. Everybody has a part to play in eradicating stigma and bias and transphobia.
Tori, I'm curious. Every trans conversation I have, I always zero in on one of the fascinates. I think is very important for the trans community. You're one of the 5 acronyms, at least one of the 5, and there's more acronyms. The plus adds many more. Does the L and the G and the B of the acronyms in our community, are they picking up, and are they doing enough for the T?
They are not, and they have never done enough. That's the short answer. Now, the good thing is there's always time to do more.
Does it disappoint you in how long it's taking for us to stand up and do more?
Yes, it does. I'm 51 years old. How much longer do we have to wait? And, you know, I mean, that's true. You know, my grandmother used to say she has more days behind her than she has ahead of her. I probably won't live to 102. I'm fat and I'm black, and I live in the South. That's 3 strikes against me.
Strike 1, strike 2, strike 3.
Exactly. But what I do know is that it's better than it was. It's just taking a very, very long time to get there. You think of... yes, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, with that soundbite that you deliver, it's not happening. It's taking too long to get there. Then the third insertion there is speak right out to the L and the G and the B. Help motivate our community to make that change.
And do something. Each of us has a role to play. I often say, you know, everyone should not walk through the middle of the streets carrying signs. There's some people who are better at making signs than they are walking. And there's some people who are better at buying the paint to put on the signs than they are at walking. And there's some people who are good at frying chicken to feed the folks who are buying the paint, who are putting on the signs, and then who are walking and marching in the streets. So whatever it is you do, whether you're a person who writes checks, whether you're a person who knocks on doors, or whether you're a person who sits in the boardroom, whatever it is that you do, make sure that you're doing it really through a lens of equity, so that the folks who need the most, who are the most underserved, are now getting the most. They're getting resources that are appropriate for their community to make effective change.
You know, in my church, that's called a call to the altar moment. And I heard your call to the altar very, very clearly. It's excellent. Are you hopeful that we'll accomplish that our community will unite for the trans community? Do you have hope? Or do you live in a place where you're constantly discouraged, but you recognize, okay, but I got to move on anyway?
No, I live and exist off of hope. Again, I'm 51, and so I've seen change happen in my life. Before I came out as trans, I lived as trans, but before I started identifying publicly as trans, it wasn't safe. It didn't feel safe for me to do that. And so I didn't, but I saw how change was happening. I see now that there are folks of all ages and classes and gender identities who are just running out of the closet now, where some folks like me, we crawled out or were pushed out. And so that's hope. That gives me hope. It gives me optimism. It gives me optimism that we're having these conversations right now.
In America, one of the organizations that is fundamentally every day, 24 hours a day, fighting for that hope is the HRC. Tell us a little bit about what our community can do to help support your mission, these issues, and where we want to get in LGBT America. What can we do to help support the HRC's mission?
So I believe that all of us have a role to play. And part of that is really working through an equity of lens and eschewing the spirit of cultural humility. I work for the Human Rights Campaign. I'm the first Black trans woman the second who's ever worked there. Camille N.D. Anderson is the first. And she was only hired a few months before I was in their 42-year history. That's great, but it's not enough. When we think about and when we really are intentional about practicing cultural humility, part of that is the commitment to lifelong learning. It means that I'm an expert, but I'm not the only expert, and I can still continue to learn things. And then also part of that is critical self-evaluation, meaning sure, I'm doing something, but am I doing enough? Am I doing the right thing now? And being ready for change. You know, the Human Rights Campaign has a legacy of being one of the whitest cis gay organizations in the history of America. But what has happened is we have been very, very intentional to include voices that traditionally have been underserved, even by the Human Rights Campaign itself. And so we have to approach this work really with intentionality to be much more inclusive of voices who are not heard, who hold less power and social capital, and empower folks to advocate for themselves, and then making sure that we use whatever power and privilege that we have in society to influence folks who make decisions.
The words are loud and clear, and of course, we encourage everyone. Learn more about the HRC. Go to their website, hrc.org. Tori, before we end tonight, it would be remiss if I didn't bring up here in South Florida, Royale Poetical Stars. The 40th, at least, probably many more than that, Black trans woman murdered here, not 25 minutes from this studio. And we are broadcasting from the gayest place on planet Earth, here in South Florida. She is murdered and stabbed 20 times, including in the face. It is clearly a hate crime, especially the stabbing in the face. Tell us your thoughts about what is happening. We're going to be at an all-time record high for violence and murder against Black trans women in America. Tell us about your thoughts about Royale Poetical Stars and what is going on in America in terms of murder and violence to our community.
So here's where I have to center myself, because there's so very little difference between myself and a lot of other folks than the ladies and the other trans folks and the non-binary folks who are being killed. Many of them are being killed by people that they know. So when your life is threatened or taken by someone that you know, and we're consistently hearing this message, it makes us think, well, who exactly can we trust if we can't trust people that we're already in relationship with? That's number one. And then you think of the ages of these folks. You know, this lady just graduated from college and was achieving dreams, lifelong dreams, and her life was cut short. It doesn't seem right on so many different levels. And so many of us, we have these conversations, and I applaud the work that Monica Roberts, God bless her soul, was doing, and the work that Dee Dee Waters is doing to really intentionally tell their stories. I'm proud of the work that we're doing at the HRC through our Fatal Violence Report, but also making sure that we're providing a little context and not just blogging that somebody else trans was killed, but making sure we're adding some humanity to their stories so that folks who didn't know them can learn more about them. It's scary, it's frightening, it's sad, but it also speaks to many, many years of folks disqualifying and discounting trans people. If you say, well, their lives don't matter for so long, then that's going to bleed into society, and that's what it's doing. If people in the LGBTQ community don't believe that trans lives matter, then we certainly can't expect folks outside of it to matter. And they see us as disposable. And that's what's happening. They're disposing of us, for lack of a better word.
Well, unfortunately, we have learned with so many of these names that one of the first and most important things that we do is say her name. And I again will do it, Royale Poetical Stars. More than 40 women trans women of color murdered in America, this one right in our backyard. And we remind our viewers, November 18th, here at the Sunshine Cathedral, the largest queer church in the world, we will hold a national trans town hall. And it will include speakers and spoken word poets and entertainers and singers. And you will have an opportunity to participate in Voice just 2 days before the International Day of Remembrance. So we invite you to
Thank you. May I also add?
Yes.
May I also add, respectively, trans men have been killed as well this year, and also non-binary people.
Absolutely. We encourage you to participate either digitally in whatever platform you would like to see it, or in person, November 18th, our National Trans Town Hall. Tori Cooper, what a pleasure it is to have spoken to you. We are going to be inviting you back for sure. This is a national class, world-class expert in community service, in HIV, serving. By the way, let me just drop that term one more time. The first transgendered black woman to sit on the White House's Presidential Advisory Council on HIV and AIDS, and also covering transgender and other related services for the HRC. Those are pretty good resume builders over your 30 years, even though you're 51. You're young. You're young. You have a lot more to do.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you.
Tori Cooper, thank you so much for being with us tonight at Queer News Tonight. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Lara are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire